working to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Alma Angeles and welcome to ASEAN in Focus. We're coming to you live from Manila and Vietnam. Hello, Eliana. On today's headlines. Travelers from India and 9 other countries are still barred from entering the Philippines until the end of August.
Da Nang, Vietnam is now considering stay-at-home orders for the city to curb the spread of the highly contagious Delta variant.
Here in the Philippines, the Department of National Defense said it is now verifying reports about the alleged presence of a Chinese research vessel off Panatag or Scarborough Shoal in the West Philippine Sea.
The last surviving senior Khmer Rouge leader will next week begin an appeal against his life imprisonment for his role in the genocide committed by the regime in Cambodia more than 4 decades ago.
First, here in the country, more than 1 million people have been vaccinated by the city government of Manila against the coronavirus disease. Now, based on the latest data from the Manila Health Department, as of 3 p.m. on Thursday, 1,001,060 individuals have been vaccinated with at least a single dose. Manila Public Information Chief Julius Leonen announced to the media via a text message. The city is utilizing its schools, 4 malls, 6 district hospitals, and the Quirino Grandstand drive-through as vaccination centers. Home vaccination is also available for immobile senior citizens and the bedridden.
Da Nang, Vietnam is now considering stay-at-home orders for the city to curb the spread of the highly contagious Delta variant. Here's Micah Gunef Apostle for the details. Hello, Micah.
Hello, Eliana. Here's the latest update from Vietnam News Express International. Da Nang is considering forbidding people from going out of their homes for a week in the middle of the increasing coronavirus infections. On Thursday, stated by the Secretary of Da Nang's Party Committee.
Okay, we'll get back with Micah as soon as we get a better connection. Meantime, here in the country, Malacanang urged the public not to believe fake experts who claim that COVID-19 vaccines are not safe and effective against COVID-19. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque denied a new claims made by Dr. Romeo Quijano, a retired professor at the University of the Philippines College of Medicine, that COVID-19 jabs are unsafe and more dangerous than the virus causing the respiratory disease. Let's listen in.
Kung totoo ba, meron daw po kasi nagsasabi na toxicologist na mas delikado daw ang vaccine kaysa sa virus.
Hindi
ano
po
daw
totoo
po
yan.
ang reaksyon ng pala?
Hindi po totoo yan. Sa buong mundo po, kinikilala natin na lahat po ng bakuna na ginagamit natin, aprobado ng WHO at ng Philippine FDA at iba't iba pang FDA ng iba't ibang bansa, ay ligtas at epektibo. Huwag po kayong makinig sa mga nagsasabing hindi epektibo at hindi ligtas ang mga bakuna. Yan po ay mga peking eksperto. Nagkaisa po ang lahat ng mga dalubhasa na ang solusyon sa pandemya ay ang bakuna.
A minister in Thailand admitted that the government was finding the COVID-19 pandemic difficult to handle due to the economic and political issues. Here's Veronica Carino to give us the details. Hello, Veronica.
Yes, hello. Good afternoon, Eliana. Thai government admitted that the COVID-19 pandemic is difficult to handle due to economic downturn and political arrest that is according to Deputy Prime Minister and Commerce Minister Jurin Laksanawisit. This is in response to questions from reporters about the upcoming censure debate against the government, which has been accused of mishandling the pandemic and delays in national vaccine program. In addition, street rallies seeking the resignation of Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha are intensifying. The government is facing COVID-19 related economic problems as well as political problems. We have to solve these issues with the people's interest at heart. It isn't an easy situation, but it's the government job to solve it, he said. The Democrat Party leader refused to say whether the censure debate was intended to put pressure on coalition partners to leave the government, claiming that the opposition had not yet named the cabinet ministers to be grilled. He stated that if the opposition had a hidden motive, it would be revealed when the censure motion was brought before the House. He also ruled out reporters that some government officials provided information to the opposition for use in the planned no confidence vote. The opposition will file a censure motion with House Speaker Chuan Lik Pai on Monday, targeting 3 to 4 ministers, including Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha and Public Health Minister Anutin Charnvirakul, for their handling of the pandemic, according to PU Thai Party Secretary General Praset Chanta Rarwangton. He said the opposition parties would meet tomorrow to compare notes and decide whether other cabinet ministers should be grilled. The debate was scheduled for late this month or early September. Mr. Chuan said yesterday that the House should or would examine the censure motion in no more than 7 days. And if everything was in order, he would hold negotiations with the government and opposition to set the dates. COVID-19 limits are being strengthened, he said, before the second and third readings of the 2022 budget bill, which will be held from August 18 to 20. From August 16 to 17, parliamentary officials and journalists will be asked to use antigen test kits to screen for COVID-19, while MPs and their aides will be encouraged to do the same. Mr. Chuan also stated that the House would decide when to end the daily session so that Parliament officials could return home before the curfew. This update is from Bangkok Post. Back to you, Eliana.
All right, Veronica, thank you for your updates there in Thailand. You stay safe and healthy.
Thank you, Eliana. Likewise, reporting live from Thailand, I am Veronica Carino, and we live in interesting times.
All right, let's go out of the ASEAN region for a little bit and go to the beautiful island nation of Maldives, where the president is targeting to administer the first dose of COVID vaccine to all children by the end of this month. Steffi Dewan joins us live. Hello, Steffi.
Hello, Alma. Yes, the government is targeting to administer the first dose to all the children between the age of 12 and 17. This announced by President Ibrahim Mohamed Solih. The president had revealed this while speaking at a ceremony held at Rehendi School last Tuesday to mark the beginning of the academic new year. In his speech, President Solih stated that a special vaccine program aimed at inoculating children between the age of 12 and 17 is set to commence very soon, for which preparations are already underway. He also highlighted the importance of the public readiness to participate in a vaccine program. President Solih also stressed on remaining vigilant against the new COVID-19 variants despite reaching this new normal. Henceforth, he urged parents, teachers, and students to strictly adhere to all COVID-19 control measures in place and work together in order to maintain the momentum established right now in curbing the spread of the virus in the Maldives. Maldivian health authorities have granted permission for children to be vaccinated against COVID-19 last Thursday. Accordingly, children between the age of 12 and 17 will be administered the Pfizer vaccine. As per the Education Ministry, a vaccine program aimed specially for school children will commence this week. While the vaccination drive in the Maldives is going ahead of full speed, a total of 287,599 persons have been fully vaccinated against COVID-19. At present, 3 types of COVID-19 vaccines are being administered in the Maldives, which are Covishield or AstraZeneca, Sinopharm, and Pfizer. Apart from this, vaccines, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson's, and Sputnik V have also been approved for emergency use in the country. And that's my quick update from Maldives. Back to you, Alma.
All right. Thank you very much for your update. And soon, maybe we can travel there to your beautiful island nation of Maldives. Thank you very much, Steph, and stay safe.
Thank you so much, Alma. Reporting live from Maldives, this is Stephanie Juan. We live in interesting times.
Da Nang Vietnam is now considering stay-at-home orders for the city to curb the spread of the highly contagious Delta variant. Here's Micah Gwyneth Apostle to give us the details. Hello, Micah.
Hello, Eliana. Here's the latest update from Vietnam Express International. Da Nang is considering forbidding people from going out of their homes for a week in the middle of the increasing coronavirus infections. On Thursday, stated by the Secretary of Da Nang's Party Committee, Nguyen Van Quang, COVID-19 is making constant progress across the city. In a period of just 1 month, from July 10 to August 11, Da Nang has recorded 1,473 coronavirus cases with 13 deaths, with around 60 to 80 new cases being recorded daily on average this month. And there is no sign of decline. The Municipal Steering Committee for COVID-19 Prevention and Control on Wednesday held a meeting to discuss potential order to make people stay where they are if the situation fails to improve in 4 days. The supposed order would essentially mean people would not be allowed to leave their homes, he added. Companies, factories, and construction sites would only be operated if staff were to remain at work for 7 days without leaving. During the long week order, authorities would perform mass COVID-19 testing throughout the city to detect and isolate coronavirus cases. Home to more than 1.1 million people, Da Nang has applied a series of social distancing measures since early May in response to the new coronavirus wave, like banning people from going to the beach or suspending activities involving large crowds. Starting July 31, the city has also undergone a strict social distancing order where people could only go out for essential reasons and must carry approval documents. The central Vietnam city, the epicenter of the coronavirus wave in July and August last year, has recorded 1,723 local COVID-19 cases ever since the 4th wave hit Vietnam in late April. Back to you, Eliana.
Thank you for your updates, Micah. You stay safe and healthy.
Thank you, Eliana. Reporting live from Da Nang, Vietnam. This is Micah Gwyneth Apostle. We live in interesting times.
Travelers from India and 9 other countries are still barred from entering the Philippines until the end of August, Malacanang announced Friday. This after President Rodrigo Duterte, upon the recommendation of the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases, or the IATF-EID, extended the travel restrictions imposed on travelers from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, United Arab Emirates, Oman, Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia. The extended travel ban came amid the threat posed by the more infectious Delta coronavirus disease 2019 or COVID-19 variant, The Philippines has reported a total of 627 cases of Delta coronavirus variant after logging an additional 177 cases of the highly transmissible COVID-19 variant. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said the IATF-EID has also approved the airline's request to resume international transit hub operations. He said these international transit hub operations shall be limited to airside transfers between Terminals 1 and 2 and within Terminal 3 of the Ninoy Aquino International Airport, and further limited for countries or jurisdictions or territories in the green list. Roque said there must be a strict observance of the protocols for the controlled movement of passengers and the health and safety protocols within the terminals. Any traveler who may exhibit symptoms should comply with isolation and quarantine protocols, which should be for the account of the sponsoring airlines.
Meanwhile, Bangladesh began vaccinating Rohingya refugees living in congested camps as the impoverished South Asian nation battles a record surge in coronavirus cases. Let's listen in.
মানে 55 বছর থেকে তার উপরে যারা আছে তাদেরকে আমরা ভ্যাকসিনেশনের আওতায় নিয়ে আসব। আমাদের টোটাল টার্গেট পপুলেশন অলমোস্ট 1000 ক্যাম্প 4 এর। তো আমাদের ডেইলি অ্যাচিভমেন্ট টার্গেট অলমোস্ট 112 জন করে।
Now, officials said they have carried a massive vaccination awareness campaign in the camps, with volunteers going door to door to inform the refugees about the importance of getting jabbed. Bangladesh has been hit by a major surge in cases in recent months, and much of the country of 169 million people is under lockdown, including the Rohingya camps. The coronavirus has killed nearly 23,000 people and infected some 1.4 million in Bangladesh, most of them in recent months. Some 98% of new infections are from the more transmissible Delta variant, first detected in neighboring India. Most of the Rohingya in Bangladesh fled an offensive by security forces in neighboring Myanmar in 2017, and 4 years later, there remains little prospect of them returning home.
2 people died and 3 were injured after jumping from the 4th floor of a building in Myanmar's commercial capital to escape a raid by security forces, authorities said Wednesday. Myanmar has been in turmoil since the military's February coup, with over 900 killed and more than 7,000 arrested in a bloody crackdown, according to a local monitoring group. Rights groups and the UN say hundreds of anti-coup demonstrators have disappeared and protesters face arbitrary arrest and the threat of torture. Security forces arrested 2 men and a woman during a raid on a building in Botadong Township in Yangon on Tuesday, according to the junta-backed True News channel. 4 other men and a woman jumped out of the window of the 4th floor to avoid arrest, it said, adding the woman and one of the men had died of their injuries. The 3 injured men had been taken to a military-run hospital, True News said, adding officers had found materials used for explosions in the raid.
In a related news, the special UN envoy for Myanmar says the leader of Myanmar's military is determined to solidify his grip on power following a coup back in February. Speaking to reporters via video link, UN Special Envoy for Myanmar, Christine Schreiner-Bergener, urged the release of political prisoners, including many media workers. Take a look.
The situation in Myanmar is still very worrisome and keeps me very busy. In my view, the Commander-in-Chief appears determined to solidify his grip on power with the latest caretaker government announcement, also with the formal annulment of the election result from last year, and with the declaration of the Commander-in-Chief to be the Prime Minister of the country. And I fear that we will soon hear also that the NLD party could be disbanded. This is an attempt to promote legitimacy against lack of international action taken. And I have to make clear that the UN does not recognize government, so it's up to the member states. And as long as member states do not make any decision, the permanent representative, Ambassador Jo Motun, is the legitimate representative of Myanmar in New York. And Aung San Suu Kyi and President Win Myint are the leaders, as mentioned also in the presidential statement of the Security Council of the 4th February this year. The situation is very difficult for the people. It's a difficult environment to live now in Myanmar. There is no freedom of speech, and I have still grave concerns about attacks against free press. And I urge always in my discussions also with the army to release political prisoners, including many media workers. Until now, we have 962 people were killed. We count 7,084 people were arrested, among them also foreigners. 5,526 people are still detained, among them 104 children. We see a lot of violence on the ground. Clearly, many people are afraid of the huge violence scale of the military people, but also the people defense forces are using now more and more weapons which are not artificially self-made weapons. They are also using now professional weapons. So I really hope that a dialogue can happen to avoid a breakout of a full-scale civil war. We have a severe COVID-19 third wave in Myanmar. Entire families are falling sick with COVID, with relatives desperately seeking and struggling to access treatment, emergency oxygen and other supplies, while the prices have skyrocketed.
The Department of National Defense on Thursday said it is now verifying reports about the alleged presence of a Chinese research vessel off Panatag or Scarborough Shoal in the West Philippine Sea. Defense Secretary Delphine Lorenzana said in a statement that the country's next course of action will be based on the facts that will be gathered by the maritime patrols in the area. Reports quoted an assistant professor at the China Maritime Studies Institute, U.S. Naval War College, as saying that a Chinese research vessel was recently spotted off the coast of Zambales. In a Twitter post on Wednesday, Martinson said the Chinese ship Haida Hao is currently operating 65 nautical miles east of the Scarborough Shoal. He added that the ship is operated by the China Ocean University.
Now, also this week, Thai police fired water cannon, rubber bullets, and tear gas at protesters in Bangkok for a second day Wednesday as demonstrators rallied against the government and its handling of the coronavirus crisis. Now, about 150 demonstrators gathered at a major intersection at Bangkok's Victory Monument on Wednesday afternoon, intending to march to Premier Prayut's residence. They quickly dispersed when riot police moved in. but they regrouped in a cat and a mouse game with officers throughout the evening. Earlier, protesters burnt an effigy of a Thai judge who had denied bail to leaders of past protests. Authorities then used shipping containers to block the route to Prime Minister Prayut's residence, prompting a separate clash in heavy rain as police fired rubber bullets and tear gas from an elevated road. Protesters defied a ban on public gatherings as Thailand tries to curb its worst virus outbreak so far, with more than 21,000 new infections announced just last Wednesday. The slow rollout of the kingdom's vaccination program, as well as financial hardship from restrictions, are fueling public anger towards Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha's government. And the news continues here on ASEAN in Focus. Eliana and I will be back right after this.
Tawanan, ulitan, at siyempre, kainan. Sa nakalipas na taon, ito ang ating naging ultimate tambayan. Walang iba, kundi ang ating mga tahanan. Kaya naman, maraming iba't ibang kabuhayan ang nagsusulputan para mapanatili ang kalinisan ng ating tahanan.
Nag-start po kami ng 250 pesos lang po. Sa kasalukuyan po, halos times 10 na po yung umiikot po naming puhunan para po sa negosyo.
Gagawa po tayo ng powder detergent sa puhunan nagkakahalagang 1,500 pesos.
Lahat ng mga negosyo ngayon na tinatawag nilang convenience-based, napakaganda talaga ng potensyal.
Ano mga tol? Ready na ba kayong makiride sa ganitong negosyo? Ako po, si Robin Padilla. At ito po ang ulat. Kaagapay sa hanap buhay.
Hello everyone, we're Zach and Zaf. Catch us on Letters and Music on air and online this coming Saturday, August 14, 1 to 2 p.m. only here in Net 25. See ya!
Yeah, you. If it's not you, it's not anyone. Not anyone.
Welcome back to ASEAN in Focus. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque on Thursday said his office is adopting a skeleton workforce after 4 of his personnel have been tested positive for COVID-19. Of this number, he said only 1 employee needed hospitalization. He, however, made assurances that he did not come in close contact with any of the employees who got infected. Let's take a look.
Okay, meron po kami 4 na positibo sa aming tanggapan, no? 4 lang naman po. At isa lang po yung that required hospitalization at hindi siya fully vaccinated, no? Isang driver po sa ating tanggapan, no? Wala po akong kahit anong close contact sa kanila kasi skeleton workforce lang po kami dito sa Office of the Presidential Spokesperson. Sa ngayong araw po, parang 9 na tao lang po ang naririto ngayon sa aking tanggapan.
Roque himself has contracted COVID-19 twice this year. Meanwhile, one employee each from the Bureau of Broadcast Services or BBS and Radio TV Malacanang or RTVM have also tested positive for COVID-19. The BBS and RTVM, both under the Presidential Communications Operations Office, have 2 active cases each. The Civil Service Commission said some 10,344 government employees tested positive for COVID-19 as of August 5. Last week, Malacanang directed all government offices and instrumentalities in Metro Manila that are under the executive branch to deploy a skeleton workforce during the implementation of the Enhanced Community Quarantine or ECQ from August 6 to 20.
Staying in the country, people aged 65 and above who intend to join next year's national elections will be allowed to go out for the filing of certificates of candidacy in October, according to Malacanang Today. In a press statement, presidential spokesperson Harry Roque also said senior citizens who want to run for a national office would be recognized as authorized persons outside of residence from October 1 to 8. Now, their A4 classification beginning October will be acknowledged regardless of the community quarantine classification imposed within their respective areas and their vaccination status, according to the Secretary. The COMELEC has set the filing of COC for all elective positions for May 9 next year, national and local elections from October 1 to 8 this year. Persons aged 65 and above are currently prohibited from leaving their respective residences because of their vulnerability to COVID-19.
The Department of Health on Thursday, August 12, included pregnant women under the priority group for vaccination against COVID-19. Yesterday, the CDC fully recommended that pregnant women get vaccinated. It said new research shows the vaccine do not increase miscarriages. Infections are rising among mothers-to-be and their vaccination rates are low. The DOH actively recommended women to be vaccinated during the 2nd or 3rd trimester. According to the department, only Gamaleya Institute Sputnik V vaccine can be administered to pregnant women.
A total of 100,000 doses of the Hayat COVID-19 vaccine donated by the UAE to the Philippines arrived in Manila on Wednesday, according to the Philippine National Task Force Against COVID-19. Let's listen in.
Yung 100,000 doses ng vaccine is really great number. Ang numero na to ay makakatulong sa mga lugar na nangangailangan ng bakuna.
Now, Hayat Vax is the locally produced inactivated vaccine developed by Sinopharm China National Biotech Group. The Hayat Vax COVID-19 vaccine was granted an emergency use authorization by the Food and Drug Administration on August 11. According to the Gulf News, UAE Embassy Acting Charge d'Affaires Khalid Al-Hajeri was present during the turnover ceremony that was also attended by Wilben Mayor from the Office of the Presidential Advisor on the Peace Process and other Philippine and UAE Embassy officials.
The last surviving senior Khmer Rouge leader will next week begin an appeal against his life imprisonment for his role in the genocide committed by the regime in Cambodia more than 4 decades ago. The Khmer Rouge, led by brother number 1, Pol Pot, left some 2 million Cambodians dead from overwork, starvation, and mass executions from 1975 to 79. The regime's former head of state, Khieu Samphan, 90, will on Monday challenge his 2018 conviction for genocide against ethnic minority Vietnamese. He was convicted alongside brother number 2, Nuon Chea, and jailed for life for genocide and a litany of other crimes, including forced marriages and rapes. The pair were previously handed life sentences by the UN back court in 2014 for crimes against humanity over the violent forced evacuation of Phnom Penh in April 1975 when Khmer Rouge troops drove the population of the capital into the countryside. Nuon Chea died in 2019, leaving Q Sampan the sole surviving Khmer Rouge leader to challenge the landmark ruling. Pol Pot, who wanted to transform Buddhist-majority Cambodia into an agrarian utopia, died in 1998 without facing trial. The hybrid court, which uses a mix of Cambodian and international law, was created with UN backing in 2006 to try senior Khmer Rouge leaders. It has convicted only 3 people so far and cost more than $300 million. Strongman Prime Minister Hun Sen, himself a former Khmer Rouge cadre, has spoken against any further cases, claiming it would plunge the country into instability. ASEAN in Focus will be back after a short break.
Fresh from your successful Ang Babaeng Walang Pakiramdam. Eto naman, ikaw, ako, at ang ending. Tama ba?
Yes.
Kayo ba talagang both nag-start talaga sa theater na agad? O kayo meron bang nag-TV muna bago nag-theater? Kayong dalawa? Gerald?
Theater po talaga ako.
Pero how do you bond naman?
Pagkain.
Anong bonding?
Pagkain.
Maraming natutuwa, meron din hindi, di ba? Wala tayong magagawa doon. Pero kayo, how do you handle that? Lalo na sa social media. Kim?
Ako, karamihan deadma.
Yung respeto sa pagkatao. Not necessarily na, Gerald Napoles. Hindi, yung nire-respeto nila yung effort ko, yung artistry ko, yun.
Yeah.
Kasi hindi lahat ng kilala o sikat nire-respeto.
Totoo yan. Tama.
Diba?
Lahat ng yan, dito pa rin sa programang May Pagmamahal will give you another inspiring, unforgettable bonding moments.
Factual.
We have to defeat the virus everywhere.
Timely information. Balanced. Not only in the country, but also abroad.
I'm certain of one thing.
Interviews that people need to know. Watch Aguila Pilipinas. A 1-hour newscast of reports coming from regional hubs in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Know the important updates in Asia in ASEAN in Focus. Track the latest stories in the provinces in Aguila Provincia. Tune into Mata ng Aguila, the evening primetime news program of Net25. Balanced and objective, Mata ng Aguila covers national and international issues, tackles news on business, health, science and technology, entertainment, sports and human interest features, and current events. And Eagle News International delivers the latest global reports, impartial, accessible, and up-to-date. It brings to fore EBC's rich international scope and access to valuable information streams.
Well, thank you to explain our help outdoor chat.
Catch these programs on Net25. You can also watch our news programs through eaglenews.ph and Eagle News Facebook page and YouTube channel.
Welcome back. President Duterte has ordered the Department of Health to to explain the reported deficiencies found by the Commission on Audit in the agency's handling of the 67.32 billion pesos in COVID-19 funds in 2020. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said the president is withholding judgment until after the DOH submits an explanation on the questionable handling of funds and COA releases its final audit report. Take a look.
Well, ang instruction po ng Presidente, saguting mabuti ang mga observation ng COA. Iba kasi itong nature ng observation ng COA. No? Kung sa dati-dati, mga politiko lang ang mga nagbibigay ng paratang, ang COA po kasi isang constitutional body at talagang trabaho niya na bantayan ng kaban ng bayan. So importante na sagutin ng mabuti ang mga obserbasyon nito at ang Presidente naman is withholding judgment until after makasumite ng komento ang DOH doon sa kanilang tinatawag na exit conference, no, at magkaroon ng final report ang COA. Pero ang Presidente po bilang abogado at bilang naging alkalde, hindi naman alam po niya na hindi lahat ng mga paratang o observation ay nasusustain after sumagot ang ahensya. Pero alam din po niya na after sumagot at ang ahensya at nagkaroon ng final observation ng COA, mabigat po yun. Dahil yan po ang pagbabasihan ng pagsasampa ng kaso. Pero ngayon po, premature pa po. Sasagot pa lang po ang DOH. Antayin po natin ang sagot. The President is keen to read the answers dahil medyo mabigat po ang mga obserbasyon.
In its 2020 annual audit report released on Wednesday, the COA said the deficiencies were mainly caused by non-compliance to pertinent laws, rules, and regulations by the DOH. The COA also disclosed that at least 11.89 billion in funds for the COVID-19 measures have not been obligated, and donations in kind estimated at 1.405 billion have not been properly documented by the DOH. Health Secretary Francisco Duque III in a statement said the DOH is currently addressing the deficiencies reported by COA.
A massive Chinese finance dam in Cambodia has washed away the livelihoods of tens of thousands of villagers while falling short of promised energy production, Human Rights Watch said Tuesday. The 400-megawatt Lower Sesan 2 dam in the kingdom's northeast has sparked controversy since long before its December 2018 launch. Fisheries experts had warned that damming the confluence of the Sesan and Srepok rivers, two major tributaries of the resource-rich Mekong River, would threaten fish stocks crucial to millions living along the Mekong's floodplains. Tens of thousands of the villagers living upstream and downstream have suffered steep losses to their incomes, HRW said in Tuesday's report, citing interviews conducted over 2 years with some 60 people from various communities. John Sifton, Human Rights Watch's Asia Advocacy Director, and the report's authors said Cambodian authorities need to urgently revisit this project compensation, resettlement, and livelihood restoration methods. The government had pushed ahead with the project, which involved resettling about 5,000 people in hopes of producing about 1/6 of Cambodia's annual electricity needs as promised by China Huaneng Group, the builder. But production levels are likely far lower, amounting to only a third of those levels, according to the report. Government spokesman Phai Siphan defended the dam, saying it provided the most positive impact and that the resettled villagers have new homes, farmland, and electric power.
Also this week, would you take a swig of water from your faucet if it originally came from the sewer? Treating wastewater to put it back into public use can help against water crisis around the world, that according to the United Nations. And now, Singapore has developed a system for treating sewage involving a network of tunnels and high-tech plants. Let's take a look. And ASEAN in Focus, we'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Mapupuno ng saya, impormasyon at inspirasyon ang hapon mo sa Afternoon Power. Handog sa inyo ng Net25. Sasabay sa inyong tanghalian ang inyong Happy Time Barkada at 12 noon. Alamin ang mga pangyayari sa ASEAN nations, ASEAN in Focus at 2 p.m. Ang inyong paboritong awit komentaryo kasama si Leo Obligar sa Piskante ng Bayan. At mga balita sa iba't ibang panig ng bansa, hatid sa atin sa Aguila Probinsya. Siksik ang hapon mo mula Lunes hanggang Biyernes, ang inyong Afternoon Power sa Net25.
Kumanta, sumaya tayong lahat. Saya-saya.
Tawanan, kulitan, at siyempre, kainan. Sa nakalipas na taon, ito ang ating naging ultimate tambayan. Walang iba, kundi ang ating mga tahanan. Kaya naman, maraming iba't ibang kabuhayan ang nagsusulputan para mapanatili ang kalinisan ng ating tahanan.
Nag-start po kami ng 250 pesos lang po. Sa kasalukuyan po, halos times 10 na po yung umiikot po naming puhunan para po sa negosyo.
Gagawa po tayo ng powder detergent sa puhunan nagkakahalagang 1,500 pesos.
Lahat ng mga negosyo ngayon na tinatawag nilang convenience-based, napakaganda talaga ng potensyal.
Ano mga tol? Ready na ba kayong makiride sa ganitong negosyo? Ako po si Robin Padilla at ito po ang ulat. Kaagapay sa hanap buhay.
Welcome back. The discovery of bacterial species with antibiotic and anti-cancer properties from the soils of Mount Mayon volcano is a breakthrough for both the Philippines and the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN. Now, these bacterial isolates may be turned into potentially useful antibiotics and anti-cancer drugs. That is according to the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity Executive Director Dr. Teresa Mondita Lim in a statement on Thursday. Now, she congratulated the University of the Philippines, Los Baños, and its team of researchers that have recently isolated 30 bacterial species from Mayon. Lim said the discovery also underscores the importance of mainstreaming biodiversity considerations into health while showing the need to prioritize the continuous assessment and monitoring of soil biodiversity. Back in the early 80s, or back in the early 50s rather, she said the Philippines also became the source of a bacteria that eventually led to the development of antibiotic erythromycin, a discovery by a Filipino doctor, Abelardo Aguilar, in Iloilo City.
The Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, granted the United Kingdom Dialogue Partner status, the first nation to be accorded the privilege in a quarter century.
Dialogue partners of ASEAN have a special status in our region, which is underpinned by resolute and committed cooperation in pursuit of mutually beneficial goals. The UK has had long-standing engagement and cooperation with ASEAN member states, bilaterally as well as regionally, for decades. However, as a dialogue partner, there is great potential for the UK to transform this strong commitment into tangible cooperation with ASEAN as a whole across all three of our political, security, economic, and social cultural communities. We look to the UK to firmly uphold ASEAN's centrality in the regional security architecture, as well as support ASEAN's efforts in the promotion of the region's security, stability, and prosperity. It is important that ASEAN and the UK continue to uphold multilateralism and promote a rules-based regional architecture which is inclusive and underpinned by international law, including the 1982 UNCLOS. With that, on behalf of ASEAN and the ASEAN foreign ministers, please allow me to officially welcome the United Kingdom as the 11th dialogue partner of ASEAN.
Thank you, Honorable Dr. for the remarks.
According to a post from the news site The Diplomat, in addition to granting the UK high-level access to ASEAN's regular summit, the British government also hopes that the status will thicken its economic ties with the region and lead to practical cooperation on issues like climate change and regional stability. Since exiting the EU, London has undertaken a concerted pivot to Asia, which forms a central part of its post-Brexit project to remake itself as an agile, mercantile powerhouse of the rubric of global Britain. At the end of last year, the UK brokered free trade agreements with Singapore and Vietnam, part of what the government describes as a strategy of forming a network of trade agreements with dynamic economies far beyond Europe, making the UK a hub of services and digital trade.
Also this week, ASEAN marked its 54th anniversary as the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic continues. The observation and commemoration of this year's ASEAN Day was once again held online, and the message of this year's anniversary highlights Brunei Darussalam's ASEAN Chair 2021 theme, "We care, we prepare, we prosper." Take a look.
COVID-19 has generated unprecedented challenges and exacerbated existing economic, social, and environmental vulnerabilities. Its devastating impact on our economy and society is a sobering reminder of how interwoven our lives are with others in the world. We also know better on how to protect, prevent, and contain the virus, and vaccination program has been rolled out in all ASEAN member states. However, there are also new challenges, particularly in the face of emerging of new variants. The fight against pandemic therefore remains a regional priority and a prerequisite to a robust recovery. To this end, the ASEAN Comprehensive Recovery Framework and its implementation plan, adopted by the 37th ASEAN Summit last year, lays out ASEAN strategies through the virus recovery stages and beyond, focusing on sector and segments of society that are most affected by the pandemic. One such strategy is by accelerating inclusive digital transformation. The pace of digital technology adoption and the prevalence of digital solutions in the region have picked up during the pandemic. This positive trend is expected to carry on into the new normal.
More difficult tests already await. Most of us are still working hard to contain the biggest health crisis of our time and reverse the damage it causes to our peoples and economies. During the pandemic, ASEAN must continue to innovate, developing new and better mechanisms to strengthen our region's resilience. Recent surges of cases remind us to maintain ASEAN's spirits of solidarity and cooperation, which have been on full display since the beginning of the pandemic.
Now, the online celebration was streamed on ASEAN social media channels, along with the official speeches. Heads or representatives of ASEAN centers and facilities conveyed their well wishes to ASEAN. Always, thank you for keeping me company, Eliana. You have safe weekend ahead of you.
Thank you, Alma. You too. And that is the latest news in the Southeast Asian nations. Stay updated about the ASEAN region. I'm Aliana Faith Sebastian from EBC Vietnam Bureau, and we live in interesting times.
And we'll see you back next week. I'm Alma Angeles. We live in interesting times.
I'm the first to say that I'm the perfect